Connacht have got the ball off the restart. Munster have made a mistake and Sam Arnold is going all the way for the corner and he may well score. He has scored. Out into the hands of Daly from Marmion. Little scoop around. That's very clever. Chance to go for the line. Conor Fitzgerald, the Limerick man, scores against his home province. Connacht come through on it. Hack it forward. Prendergast does so. There's a big chase on here. Oliver can't catch it. Here's Kieran Marmion. Marmion is as alive as he ever is to a breaking ball. What a brilliant piece of play from Marmion. They still have the ball. Oh, that's harsh on Connacht, but it's still Connacht's ball. They've knocked it on. Connacht have won the game. Munster have knocked it on. Connacht have won at Thomond Park for the first time since 2015 and only the second time since 1986. 24 points to 20.
It's the Craigie Rugby Podcast. It's the post-match edition after Connacht have won for only the second time in God knows how many years down in Thomond Park. And on the Zoom call tonight, we couldn't do the call because Rob and William are in Thomond Park and they couldn't get a recording going. We have Linley MacKenzie.
Good evening, and what a great evening it is. It
certainly is. We've got Niall Sheil.
Good evening, Alan. Good evening, Linley.
Good evening.
And Danny Deegan. And Danny, it was a full house tonight. We would have had Dave on as well, Dave Finn, but apparently he didn't get to see it live, so there's no point in having him on. But anyway, Niall, you were about to tell us what happened. I've got a recording of the press conference that worked. I got that working correctly, so I have the Connacht press conference and a very happy Andy friend we had in there. But Niall, what happened with Munster? Because I had to run away from the TV to sort of get myself set up for the press conference. I didn't see what happened afterwards.
Well, I'm not quite sure, but they looked not just disappointed to lose the game. I think the niggle in the game might have upset them a little bit. And Sinead.
Well, I was just delighted to see Connacht standing up. And I was so frustrated last week, and Rob had mentioned that he thought we sort of let them away with it a little bit when we didn't talk too much about the Leinster defeat. And I said to him, well, I'd rather wait to see what happens this week. And my God, did we answer? Did we answer in a huge way? The attitude was absolutely bang on. What do you think, Dan?
Yeah, I'd have to agree. Look, I was so dejected after the game last week. Thinking about this game before the teams were announced, I was like, I couldn't see how we were going to win it. And then when I saw the teams announced, I really couldn't see how we were going to win. They had such a strong team. I know we had a strong bench, but so did they. It's just so impressive that our young guys, I know there was a few old heads, but the guys that really stood out to me was Niall Murray, Keane Prendergast. Like they put in massive shifts in the forward pack.
They did. Sorry. I got us distracted there because William has just sent me the post-match audio himself and Rob made in Thomond Park because they must have been able to record something after the game. So before we move on here, let's have a listen to what they had to say.
Podcast drop-in time from Thomond Park as the rain buckets down and we're a long way from the stadium is where we're parked. So we're going to get soaked, but I don't think we care all that much. We're proud to be here. William Davies. Oh, that was fun.
Oh, that was great crack altogether. That was just really a proper old-fashioned ding-dong inter-pro game. Being played on a freezing cold, wet night in May, which you'd only get in Ireland. It's ice cold here. It's not funny how cold it is.
This man was in Krasnodar.
Indeed, but it's a different type of cold here, as I always say. Great performance by Connacht. They stuck at it. They were dogged. They were determined. Got their work rate up. Took the lessons of last week. Took the embarrassment of that mess against Leinster and turned it round. Got stuck into Munster. There was a few old bits of what the late Micheál O'Hare used to call schmozzles. There was a bit of pushing and shoving. There was a bit more bite to some of that tonight.
Yes.
And that was just excellent.
Yes, there was. There was the subs getting involved. Marmion started it, really. I know Healy slid in late, and I don't like that, and that's fine, but you don't throw the ball at someone. So Marmion started that, but subs got involved. Not good. Not good. Down the other end, some Connacht subs got involved. Not good. But anyways, referee just kind of dealt with it as if it was the 1980s and said, everyone stand back. It was like something like Béziers versus Toulon in the 1980s. Let them belt each other for a few minutes, and then let's get back at it.
Yeah.
And I don't think we should complain too much, even though we were a little bit.
Well, he could have spent 10 minutes with the TMO going through it frame by frame.
Yeah, we didn't want that.
Who did this? Who did that? Who pushed? No, he didn't. He may, when the review is done and the review assessor talks to him, say, you didn't handle that right. But for the type of game it was, and for a referee from outside of Ireland, I think he handled it really well.
Do you know, sometimes we overplay things, and I wonder to myself, like I was about to say to you, this seems like it's going to be significant next year, that they just made sure they didn't lose 9 in a row against Munster, that they made sure they, won here for the first time in quite some time since 2015, that they just, stood up to some of the aggression that was coming their way. Of course, they were giving it back. We're not trying to play poor mouths here, but like at the same time, I know in the back of my head that it won't matter, it'll be a new season. I'm just going to say, though, I do think just a few percentage points, it's going to help them in the next time they play Munster.
I think it will help them next time they play Munster, because next time they come down here, they'll realise that if you're prepared to stand up and fight, as the Munster song says, that's half your battle. And there's a lot more to it than that. Going out and just throwing shapes is not going to win you a rugby match. But they needed to dig in tonight because they knew what they were going to get. Munster were never going to beat you the way that Leinster beat you, because Leinster beat you in different ways. They beat you up and then they outskill you. Munster can't quite do that. And the thing that Munster got caught up with this evening was they started panicking a bit, which is really odd to watch. And Murray, I said to you, I said on the radio, if they'd followed the way Murray was trying to play the game, I think Munster would have won, but he couldn't get the rest of them onto his wavelength. He was trying to pass the ball, he was trying to run, and he was trying to kick, and but the rest of it was just very disorganised. And they got frustrated with themselves, and they got frustrated with the referee. But that was because Connacht were in their faces. Every second of every minute, Connacht were there making their tackles. Connacht made plenty of mistakes, but they didn't let it affect them. They just moved on. And this thing they talk about, next job. What's my next job? You make your tackle, get up, go and do something else. There wasn't enough of that last week, and at various times during the season, Connacht have let themselves down on that issue. But today, they all got stuck in, and some of the younger players really stood up. Cian Prendergast had a big game. Niall Murray was man of the match, according to television. I've no issue with that. And it's time for them now to take the baton from the Dennis Buckley's 199th appearance, brought on a minute before half time, because along with Finlay Bealham, because the two starting props, Dominic Robertson-McCoy and Paddy McAllister, were being mullered, and he just made a decision. Dennis Buckley, that's one of the best games he's had for Connacht in a long time.
That turnover on the line. I'm going to try and just randomly fire some memories from that game, like the kick-off that Munster botched and Sammy Arnold just went in and scored a try. She just handed it to him almost. Conor Fitzgerald's first half, just poise, conviction. He's 23. He has so much in the tank. I'm just excited about what Conor Fitzgerald can bring. Look, he kicked the ball directly into touch before he went off, so that's not going to be a nice memory for him to finish. But he scored his first ever try for Connacht. In his home city, he was brilliant tonight.
Yeah, and it was a great try, and it was made by the fact that there was a bit of physicality. Tom Daly was key to it, but it was the eyes right move that left Goggins sitting on his bum, because he thought Fitzgerald was going to pass. Fitzgerald never had any intention of passing. He was going to score. He got there. He got the arm out. He got the try down. Kieran Marmion's opportunist tried.
Typical Marmion. You know, I'm not sure he's himself this season, and even tonight it wasn't 100% brilliant from him. It wasn't 100% brilliant from anyone. It was that kind of game, but that was so typical of him. It was so class. He just was. You just knew we needed someone to have the legs, the speed, and kind of, forward thinking vision, the kind of futuristic, knowing what's going to happen next. And sure, Marmion's the best guy in the world for that, and that's why he scored the try.
Yep, scored that try. It was just a great game, and that's important to celebrate that, because sometimes you can come and win games like this and they're not great games, and this was a really great game. And this season now, Connacht have won in Dublin, Belfast and Limerick.
What? I was so wrapped up in the Ravenhill and Thomond Park away results back to back, if you like, in between either side of that Leinster game. I forgot about RDS. That's unheard of.
Yeah, it is, and it's great as well. And this competition is what it is. I'm not. We're not sitting here now saying this is the greatest competition ever, but Inter-Pro rugby is still exactly. It matters to the players. It matters to the fans. It matters to us in the media who are watching it, and it also matters to Ireland because they're looking for their 2 games in July, and. Yeah, it matters. It has that edge to it. Some of the games in Wales, Glasgow and Edinburgh on occasions, And as I say, some of the games in Wales also, there's a bit of an edge there. There's old rivalries. The Scarlets and the Ospreys can't stand the sight of each other, and that's been going on. That's been going on from long before I was born, because that's just the way it is, and that's why it's important that they started with these. And Connacht have won 2 out of 3 of them, and they've won the 2 away ones. And last week was a bad blip, but I think you can say they may not have completely buried it, but they came out today and they were determined to be better, and that's all you can be, and they were better and they won.
From here in Thomond Park, back to the gang who are carrying this podcast this week. Great work from Alan too, backing us up here in the broadcast. Great work from Damien Burke and Galway Bay FM, who just helped us get on air, and everyone else back there who makes it possible. That's it from us.
All right, great stuff as always from the guys. And actually, before we have a bit of a chat here, let's hear what Andy Friend and Niall Murray said at that press conference.
Andy, congratulations again. This season has been a roller coaster, but just to take this moment in and of itself, it's a fantastic achievement. Connacht fans would be so proud of you.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. It is a proud day, mate, because there's been a lot going on over the last this season. There's been a lot going on. This last week there's been a lot going on, and certainly the way we capitulated last Saturday, we weren't proud of that. And then to come to Thomond Park against a pretty good Munster side, you know what lies ahead of you. But I just thought jerseys 1 to 23 stood up there tonight, and I thought they were immense. So to walk away from Thomond with a victory is a really proud moment.
You spoke about attitude, you spoke about mentality during the week. Even if you hadn't done that, I think we'd be speaking about it after tonight, because it was a transformation, and that's probably what got you through some of the tricky moments in that second half.
Yeah, and we just talked about it in the sheds afterwards. Like, to me, that's the best I've seen us for 80 minutes. And listen, there were a few rockets placed up people's backsides through the week, but there was a response, and that's what you want. And we talked about it after Leinster game. We've got 6 days, and in 6 days' time we can put out another performance, and we've got to make sure we're going to be proud of that. And we walk away from here 6 days later, and I am proud of that. So that's a compliment to the players and the fight and the hunger we've got within the squad.
Andy, you were confident that you were going to fix some of the problems in the Maul. We doubted you because it felt like it was so out of control the previous week. That's some turnaround. How proud are you of your set of forwards and the work that the management team done there this week?
Yeah, that's your job to doubt us, Rob, so I don't blame you. Mate, you've got to have belief. I've got enormous belief in Jimmy Duffy. I've got enormous belief in this group of forwards. I've got a young bloke standing beside me, Niall Murray. His future's going to be unbelievable. But they were hurt last week. That's not a nice place to be when you're coming off the back of a loss like that, and you know that there's been 5 tries have come pretty much from our Maul setup or in our war area. So that hurts your pride. So what you saw there tonight, though, was the technical brilliance of a Jimmy, throwing that into the attitude and the pride that these young blokes have, and come up against probably the best bowling team in the Pro 14, and to hold them out for most of it was fantastic.
Well done, first of all, Niall. An incredible game to be part of. What was it like out there?
Thanks very much. Yeah, it was a piece of history out there. Such a good performance on from 1 to 15, 1 to 23. Just delighted we stuck in there and got the win.
Very physical. Munster put it up to you, but you hung on. You kept your composure in those closing stages. It must have been really, really tough to withhold that pressure from Munster. Yeah,
Munster put a lot of pressure on us up front. I think it was one of the most physical games I've ever played in. My body's fairly sore now, even sore in the morning. But yeah, up front we fronted up. I thought our Maul D was tenfold better than last week. I think we only let in 1 try this weekend, but we're doing really well.
So on the night of firsts, Connacht's first time ever winning in Belfast, in Dublin and in Limerick, all in the same season. It was also Andy Friend's first win against Munster. Interesting one for you, Linley.
Well, fair play, actually. That's what I say. I mean, and well deserved at this stage. I think it's always a milestone, isn't it, when you beat your home provinces? And it's 3rd year. it's timely. You know, you would hope that by the third year of when you are the coach, that you are able to have a squad that can answer the questions from the other provinces. And I think what I was most impressed about tonight was that he took some very bold decisions in his selection. He dropped quite a few of last week's players, or not so much dropped them, but he introduced younger players to the squad. And I think they answered everything that he would have wanted them. And I think at the end of the day, what it says is that we Connacht do have a squad system now, not just a first 15, that are able and capable of doing this. The only issue is, as always, I suppose, why can't they do it more often? Why can't they do it twice in a row? What does it take? Does it take losing to have a week of winning given out to, to be able to respond? But I think what I suppose was why I'm saying about this, the changes that were made to the team, was that these were young fellas who stood up. So they're almost saying to the older lads, some of the older lads in the squad, hey, listen, we're the younger boys, we're the younger bucks, and we have it. And I think it was a great thing to see.
It most certainly was, and for me, Cian Prendergast, I thought was just amazing. I thought he brought an aggressiveness. Like, I was chatting to Danny before the game, and I was saying we keep hearing how good Cian Prendergast is, and in the A games he's been a fairly standout player. But tonight was the night to see how good he really was, because to come up against Peter O'Mahony, who's just got a new 2-year contract with Ireland, CJ Stander, both starting Lions players in their time, and a couple of the young bucks from Munster, it was just phenomenal to see him up there, and he didn't take a single step backwards all night.
One of the impressive things was as well, in his defence, if he was bounced, he always got the guy on the second bite. Like he never gave up. To go off what you're talking about, Linley, is I found it quite interesting that, like, yes, Friend did pick a whole lot of these young guys, but the difference could be is that do these young guys now believe? Like they've seen Connacht go on and win a Pro 12 a few years ago. They would have been young and seeing this, and now they believe they've got this belief that Connacht can be a winning team. That where maybe you see with some of the older guys that they've gone up against Leinster and taken some amount of hammerings that after Leinster came back, their heads did drop. Where tonight, it easily could have happened as well. Connacht score a penalty and Munster comes straight back down and score a try. Connacht's head could have gone easily. No, like just as they did last week, but they scored a try and kept going.
They most certainly did, and it was just so good, Packy. That's what we want from them, isn't it? That we want Connacht to be fighting. And fighting in a good way, not fighting, but as in standing up for themselves, putting, having the right attitude. It was great to see them following through on what their coaches wanted them to do. And as Danny said, the young guys really brought a lot to it.
Well, I wouldn't knock the fighting either, Alan.
I'm with you.
They didn't take a step back there. I love Tom Daly's captaincy tonight when he calmly told the ref their subs were at it over there as well, down the far end, the start before that. But something, it drives home to you, doesn't it? Rugby is so much about attitude. Absolutely. Like, types of play, everything are really, really important, obviously. But you have to be ready to hurt and to get hurt. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
And above any other sport I know, it has that more than anything else. But they didn't take a backward step. But you're going about Niall Murray. He can say Murray whatever way he wants after a performance like that. But hey, listen, anytime you beat Munster, it's great.
Well, and the other thing,
which isn't very often.
No, it's not.
That's
but
right.
I wonder.
Unfortunately,
I wonder if one of the reasons that it isn't very often is I felt that the ref had a really good game tonight because, from my point of view, he refed both sides the same way. That he played it, he basically saw two teams and he just refed two teams. And then, maybe I'll get into trouble for saying this. I don't feel it's always like that with Irish referees. That there are certain things missed. Like if you look at last week against Leinster, their first try came from an illegal clean-out of Buckley, which opened up the door for them to turn over the ball At which point, Leinster then did brilliantly to score it all. But the clean-out was at least 3 yards past the maul. So you're thinking, well, hang on a minute. That's not right. And then, the Niall Murray incident last week where the ball is thrown at him and he just flicks his foot at it because it's thrown at him. And the penalty goes against Connacht rather than the initial instigator. Now, maybe that's, people say, it's classic Connacht. But all I know is that when we get neutral referees, we tend to do better. And I will get Danny to do the stats on some of them just to see if I'm right. And if I'm wrong, I'll hold my hands up.
I also think on this occasion, Joy Neville and the TMO obviously played a huge role because had she not come back for that, it would have been a try to Munster. Had she not come back, and I was pleasantly surprised, so to speak, that it was actually seen. So I think the role of the TMO was obviously proved vital as well.
So of course this changes up. Before going into this game, Munster were 18-point favourites. I had my hand hovering on Connacht at 3-1 and then couldn't do it. And I was sort of saying, this season's over, it's a waste of time. After last week, we're just not able to do it. As Danny mentioned earlier, they had a phenomenal team out. We only had, I think it was 4 or 5 players who almost did the job earlier on in the season in Thomond Park starting today. I thought, well, I can't see where this is going to come from. I'm hoping that we see a good display, but looking at the table now, we have as much chance as anyone else at this stage, although we could have done with the bonus point near the end.
Well, like you say, you're looking for the bonus point, but we've only won in Thomond twice in 30, 40 years.
I'm being facetious there. We'd never scored 3 tries in Thomond Park before. The only other time we scored 3 tries, I believe, was down in Cork when we drew back in 2004. So, yeah, I was only just throwing that out there. But we're in with an outside chance of putting it up to other people. But it certainly makes sure. I thought we were going to finish last, to be honest. Now we've a heck of a chance of doing quite well. And I don't know. Yeah. Are we going to? I didn't quite follow the announcement today. Are the winners of this section going to play the winners of the South African section in the final? So there's no local final anymore.
I'd say they've named this. They've said it will be in Europe, and
Europe. Sorry, Europe.
I expect that'll have something to do with whoever the winners of the European section are to be in their country.
Look, I think at the end of the day, this Rainbow Cup is something completely new, and it's obviously something that hasn't worked out as it was supposed to work. So I say this first year of the Rainbow Cup, you take your wins, you enjoy it, and if Benetton and whoever gets to that final, so be it. I don't think a hell of a lot is going to be read into it because of the situation with the Rainbow Cup. I think the most important thing is that teams like Benetton and like Connacht and those other teams use it as a development and use it to particularly not just their skills, but to strengthen their mental capacity and their squad system. And I think that's exactly what Connacht did this evening with the squad that it had out.
The one thing I'd say about that is I think maybe outside looking in and as fans, we might not care about this Rainbow Cup because it is a bit of a shambles. But I think maybe this is kind of benefiting a team like Benetton, who had a horrendous season. Did they even win a game in the Pro 14? And now they've gone and won a couple. Like that will do wonders for their squad going into next season. Like there'd be nothing worse than going through a preseason and you have won a game in your league and you're going into a newer, tougher version of that league. So I think it's great for teams to like Benetton to get back up on the horse and to also, as we saw tonight, it's a huge chance for young guys to get a chance and to show their worth, and I really think they did that tonight for Connacht.
Yeah, and we were talking about it during the week, Niall, where you were going on about how well Sean O'Brien had been doing because he'd had a run of games. And I was listening to one of the other podcasts and Bernard Jackman was making the point that guys like Craig Casey aren't getting enough starts. Like he's played a few games, but when it came to the big games, he wasn't getting them, and you could see that again tonight. That Sean O'Brien was superb again tonight. Like he was absolutely superb. He had playing, I know, not directly opposite Dale Landy, but not far away from him. And Dale Landy hardly ever got a sniff of the ball all night. And so the young players need to be brought through.
Sean O'Brien's turnover was what actually produced the last 5 minutes of play. And I thought that was a huge turning point, actually. And it really just did show, I think, that to Munster, that, hey, lads, we're not maybe the Connacht of old. We're not just going to lie down here, that you're going to have to bloody work hard for it. And I think that I thought that was a really huge turning point when he did that.
He was very good. I was just thinking about, we were on about Damien de Allende, and Tom Daly was, you were saying he was, that Sean O'Brien was, almost opposite him, but Tom Daly was opposite him. And I think he played the role as the second receiver really, really well tonight. Probably better than he's done all season, actually. He was, I just thought he had another phenomenal game, and he was really cool with the captaincy. I thought he was very good. I didn't, not that I didn't expect it, I didn't know, I didn't really think about it, and if that's, that score that much. But I thought he had a really excellent game, really quietly kind of efficient game, and put in a serious shift in defence as well.
He did captain Ireland Sevens back in 2016, so it's not as though he's new to this captaincy role. And and he's another example of a player getting multiple games to get him up to the level that he needs to be at, where he's been talked about as being a possibility for the Irish camp for during the summer.
Well, he has to know, as far as I'm concerned. He has to. But the only thing is, I hope he gets a little bit of a rest between now and then, because he's played a phenomenal amount of rugby this season.
19 starts.
He really has. Pardon?
19 starts this season.
Like, he did, like John Porch is another fellow that's played a huge amount of rugby since he arrived here, and I think he's a bit tired looking at the minute. He's a bit heavy-legged at the minute. No, he's
and mentally tired. It's not just a physical tiredness with him; it's mental. But that was his best game in a while, because he'd had a few stumbles, and tonight was one of his better games.
Yeah,
I have to make a point about Tom Daly, and that is, I think when Tom's first season here, I don't think few people would have, really thought too much about Tom Daly. He was a player coming down here from Leinster. Didn't have a hugely impressive season, I don't think. And I think part of that reason, and I think Andy Friend has alluded to it, is the fact that he never really was able to nail down, a position. He was kind of moved around, the field. He's played out half, he's played on the wing, he's played centre. And I think sometimes with players like that all it takes is a coach to actually have a different approach to you, and to sit down and chat to you, and to take an interest in you. And I think Andy Friend said it, was it last year or the year before, that Tom had come and said to him, like, he just wanted to play, and he was prepared to play anywhere. And I think Andy Friend, you get some players who really are encouraged by their coaches, and you get some who maybe don't have, that sort of relationship with them or whatever. And I think Andy Friend and Tom Daly have obviously formed a coach-player relationship that is actually working. And I think that's actually really been an important point in Tom Daly's progress, because Andy Friend you listen to Andy Friend talking about Tom Daly, and he is encouraging him all the time. He's always giving him the responsibility. He's always being positive about him. And I think someone like Tom Daly and many others who maybe have come from Munster or Leinster, and they come down here with that slightly inferiority, possibly complex, because they have come down from Leinster or Munster. And Andy Friend is there saying to Tom Daly, you're just as good as any of these players. And he's given him that confidence. And, it is really a wonderful thing to see another player coming down and stepping into the shoes and being confident and producing. And I think, I think he has really shown, particularly this season, what he's capable of when any player gets confidence. Take the confidence away, and you know what happens.
Exactly. And it's to me, it's about late developers. It's about the fact that you can't, again, there was a podcast we've gone on a bit during the week, that some guys develop later than others. And we have this fascination in this country that if you haven't made it by the time you're 21 or 22, you're not a good enough rugby player. And that's just rubbish. We're too fascinated by trying for names to be superstars when they're 20, 21 and expect them to stay like that the whole way. There's so much more to it than that. It's such a complex game. And sometimes guys, as you say, need just to be given game time. And we're perfect for that. Connacht are perfect to do that. Alex Wootton again tonight, I thought was back on some sort of form after his little break. Papa Leahy, what a turnaround that guy has made. The last game I saw him live was one of the A games, and I was disgusted with him. I thought his attitude stank. Whereas the last 2 games, I thought he's been brilliant. And tonight, brilliant in a more workmanlike way rather than an explosive way. He was still honeypotting players, but he was still working. He kept working. We got 70 minutes out of him tonight, which I think is fantastic.
But how can you expect players like, people expect players like Papali'i to walk into this country from being overseas, having been a rugby league player, and just being able to flick a switch and be the player that they want them to be? It's
not that I wanted him to be a superstar. It was the fact that he just faffed about a bit too much for my liking. Like, I'd seen him in a couple of the earlier games, and I was saying, okay, geez, a lot of potential in this guy. And then it was as though this game, maybe he just had an off day, maybe he was just bad, but I just got frustrated with him in that scenario. And I do that with Irish players. It's not just picking on money, saying that just to see the turnaround in him. And again, to back up what you're saying about what Andy's capable of doing. He's capable of stopping and listening, and maybe this is part of the whole mental awareness that's coming into the sport, and I'm delighted to see it. Because we have an interview, William did an interview a couple of weeks back with Robin Copeland about the big rugby run that's happening shortly. And, part of it is, mental awareness isn't just, we can't just talk about it, we have to see it in action. I think Andy Friend brings it into action. You can see it in the way some of these guys are coming through and developing as human beings as well as just rugby players. It's great to see.
You see, I'm always fascinated about why some players, like, who are stars, can have an off day. I mean, let's face it, Conor Murray went through a period in his career when he wasn't at his best, but yet he's still regarded as probably the number 1 scrum half. He wasn't automatically dropped. People, he survived. People gave him that credence that he had that ability. So, maybe it's because he plays for Munster that people gave him that credence. I don't know. But, I think people have to be a little bit more, I mean, everyone is human after all. We do have our good days and our bad days, and rugby players the same. There is the holistic approach that you have to take to players. And as I say, people were patient with Conor Murray when he went through a bad period. People have been patient with a lot of players when they've gone through bad periods. And particularly at national level. So, why shouldn't we be patient with some players who have off days or on days? Packy, you might have a response to that.
I'm very patient, Linley, with everybody. I know. I agree with you. Listen, we talked about it last week, and I said I was getting fed up with this. I felt like it was being, I don't know if it came across properly, I felt like it was being a bit of an excuse with we're shopping in Lidl, we're shopping in Aldi, everybody else is shopping in,
Yeah.
I kind of do find, I have to say, I find that a little bit, I don't think it's a good attitude to have for those poor players who think that they're little players or Aldi players, I shop there all the time, and I prefer it to Tesco, so hey.
But I think what he's saying is that Munster have signed 2 World Cup winners. We've signed a guy that played rugby league. I think Andy Friend likes to use the odd metaphor too, because it does kind of bring in other different people and makes it good for a good snapshot. But even Leinster this season, they must have kind of guessed that they were going to lose their 2 tight heads to the Lions and even maybe a bit of Ireland. So they go and sign a guy that's playing down in Australia. I can't, for whatever his name is, I can't remember. We don't have the same. Yeah, we don't have the same. We don't get that same opportunity. That's, I think, the point that he was making.
Absolutely. You're right. It is the point he's making, and there's nothing wrong with it. I think it's just sometimes the metaphor that he does use that maybe maybe could be changed up. Maybe he should be talking about internationals and as opposed to Lidls.
The way I look at it is that you walk into the wine stack in Lidl or Aldi and you can pick out some absolute screamers for €10, and they are absolutely brilliant. But unfortunately, there's an awful lot of dross you have to get through before you find the screamer. Doesn't always place in a good wine shop.
Yeah, no, but the thing I'm getting from it is I feel like it's not so much that it is kind of focusing on the negative of it. Mm. Instead of saying that, we could just say we have to be really, really careful about how we do it. Mm. Do you know what I mean?
My view,
and I think that's the way of doing it. And I know what you're saying, Alan, as well. Like, I get what you mean about that, and I think everybody gets what Friendy is saying about it. For the point has been made, and it's been made by Pat Lam as well, and he, that's 2 coaches ago. So let's leave it there. Let's park that now.
Absolutely. Let's with the right attitude and some good coaching, you can still go and take on Munster when they're more or less at full strength, and if they weren't at full strength, they were by the end of the game, and still win.
I think the thing about it is, can you do it consistently? And that is the issue. We can produce it, Connacht can produce it every now and again, and with all the heart and soul that these players put in, sometimes maybe they're just not the best specimen of players. But
this should give them the belief, Linley. This should give them the belief now that they can.
But I think there are players within that squad who have belief. You just look at the young Sean O'Brien. Just look at a lot of these young players. Even think of Kieran Marmion, who's been sitting on the bench and twiddling his toes and was missed out on a World Cup. And then he comes back and produces, a performance where he scores the winning try. He does everything he possibly can. He hasn't lost faith in himself because he has confidence in himself. And I think it's all about instilling that confidence in the players. And I think that is such an important part of basically what Connacht have to do with a lot of their players who think they maybe have come from Aldi or Lidl.
Absolutely. There's some, as we say, there's some absolutely stonkingly brilliant wines you can get in Aldi or Lidl, and that's what we have to focus on. That you have to be that stonkingly good wine that's from either of those places. Okay, so let's just finish off. Niall, I think you've been scouring social media. What did you just find?
CJ, I just found that CJ Standard criticised tonight's officials in the aftermath of Munster's 24-20 defeat to Connacht at Thomond Park. Afterwards, Standard told Air Sport it felt like we were playing against more than 15 men. I can say it now, I'm done, but it's difficult for both sides.
Welcome to our world, CJ.
But there you go. It's against more than 15 men.
Wow. What a thing to say, and I'm sure I haven't looked at social media yet, but I'm sure it's going to be fun. It's never fun when we get hammered. It certainly wasn't fun. We were reading it last week, I have to say. But
talking of social media here, I'm just reading Bernard Jackman, former Leinster and Connacht player, who was actually on this occasion is making special mention to Jimmy Duffy and Nigel Carolan, who, in their last season with Connacht, after all the years they've spent as players and as coaches, have finished up beating the 3 provinces away from home in the same season. So that's a very nice gesture from Bernard Jackman, who obviously would know these players well, and who was a player who knows what it's like to play for Connacht.
Absolutely. Yeah. So
as he said at the start of the game, he's had some dark days in Munster. Munster seem to always have their Connacht's number.
Yeah, and that's something, Packy, we were talking about that as we started the podcast. I'm going to finish with along the same lines. Connacht standing up and being counted, and yes, there's a couple of fracas and the Munster guys didn't like it, but so what? I'm tired of seeing Connacht teams gone down there and wilt under that sort of pressure, and they didn't do it today.
Yeah, it might have. Maybe it has something to do with the benefits of home crowds and all that. But that was the most pleasing thing as well for me. Funnily enough, I think that affected Munster, that they may have been expecting Connacht to not throw in the towel, but not stand up and be counted as much as that. But I'm glad they did, and it'll open up a nice friendly rivalry again. That maybe hasn't been there for a long time, They always expected to win, and to be honest, they more often than not did. So, this is it's good for the Pro 14, 16,
and good for Irish rugby, and good for the fact that we're tired of hearing that the Pro 14 isn't good enough, and I'm always of a view that that's a lot of rubbish in my book. I'm not saying every game was brilliant, but if you want to put it out there, that was as good a display as Connacht have ever put out, certainly away from home, but it's an amazing away record we have this year. The question is, when the fans come back next year, will we be able to merge our excellent away record and keep some of that for next year, and then get some home wins with all our Connacht clan screaming and roaring the house down behind them at home?
I have absolutely no doubt that these young players particularly some of these young players have received a huge boost from this, and I think I just look at about the last 5 minutes of play when you had O'Brien, Steele. You had a turnover now. I'm not sure who was in the line out, but I know Bielan.
Niall Murray. That one,
okay, another young player, and then Bielan was involved. And then you had a knock on by John, was it John Klein, from pressure. And then, you had, there were other things like, in terms of Connacht, Buckley, there was a turnover by Buckley.
First steal in a long time, yeah.
So if you think about that, in the last few minutes of play, these Connacht players were still fighting. And, it's very, I'll just say that this week, Andy Friend used an expression, which I think I used in a headline in the Go Advertiser, which is Friend wants Connacht to stand up and fight, which is obviously a very appropriate, he knows a little bit of history, and he knows Munster. And all I will say is tonight, Connacht did exactly that. They stood up and fight to the very last minute. And I think that just has to be applauded. It has to be celebrated. And, we may not see another one, against Munster in Thomond Park for a couple of years, or maybe we will. But the point is, that is something it is a new piece of history for Connacht, that those three teams have been beaten away, the three interprovincial teams have been beaten away from home. And that just has to be applauded and celebrated.
It most certainly does, and I think we should finish the podcast there. What a way to finish. Linley MacKenzie from the Galway Advertiser, as always, brilliant on our podcast. Niall Sheil and Danny Deegan, thanks for joining me tonight.
Loose, cut it loose, break out or nothing changes, sad and confused, don't wait until